In this video, we will be removing a worn clutch and flywheel and replacing it with a new ACT performance clutch and flywheel. While this video provides a general visual overview of the most common installation steps, it is in no way intended to replace a factory service manual which contains detailed procedures and specifications. We begin by removing the battery cover located in the trunk of the vehicle and disconnecting the ground cable from the negative side of the battery. Move the cable away from the terminal to assure it will not make accidental contact. Lift the vehicle, and if they still exist, remove the splash guards from the underside of the vehicle. Please note that our vehicle was equipped with an aftermarket exhaust system. If your vehicle is equipped with an OE exhaust system or a different manufacturer's aftermarket exhaust system, some of the following steps to remove the exhaust may be different. Unbolt the exhaust flanges located just behind the catalytic converters. With the flanges unfastened, remove the gaskets and place them aside. If they are in good shape, they should be able to be reused for reassembly. Unbolt the exhaust clamps located just in front of the X pipe and remove the two front pipes. Remove the two rubber isolators from the exhaust hangers located just below the differential and also the two just above the exhaust tips. With someone holding the remaining exhaust system in place, unbolt the exhaust hanger bracket assemblies located just behind the rear suspension on each side of the vehicle and then remove the exhaust from under the vehicle. Unfasten and remove the heat shields located in the center of the vehicle. Unfasten the front of the drive shaft from the rubber isolator, which is also known as the guibo. Unbolt the center bearing from the body of the vehicle and lower the drive shaft down and to the side, as the rear of the drive shaft has not been disconnected. To avoid risk of damage, do not allow the drive shaft to hang free from the U-joints. Tie the drive shaft out of the way to one side using straps or something similar. Remove the electrical connectors from the bracket located on the bottom of the transmission and unplug the connectors. Unplug the electrical connector at the bottom of the oil pan. Unfasten the bracket located below the transmission and move it to the side. Unbolt and remove the splash guard brackets located to the right of the transmission. Unbolt the bracket attached to the right side of the transmission, which is also affixed to the oxygen sensor wiring. Move it to the side and out of the way. Unlock and remove the two bearing pins fastening the shifter assembly bracket to the top rear of the transmission. Unclip and remove the shift rod from the shifter. Unbolt the shifter bracket from the vehicle's body. Disengage the shifter from the shifter bracket by inserting a flathead screwdriver in the slot of the shifter bracket assembly and rotating the tang of the shifter bushing. While not necessary, we removed the shifter so that we could better demonstrate removing the shifter from the shifter bracket assembly. Remove the shifter bracket from under the vehicle. Place a jack under the transmission. Unlock and unplug the electrical connector located at the right rear of the transmission. Remove the crossmember bolts and lower the transmission just a few inches. This will allow better access to the slave cylinder and bell housing hardware. Unbolt and remove the slave cylinder from the transmission. Remove the bell housing bolts. On the right side of the bell housing, which is not shown in the video, there is a bracket that will be removed along with the bell housing bolts. There are different size bolts affixing the transmission to the engine, as shown in our diagram. Keep them organized for reinstallation. Once all the bolts have been removed, disengage the transmission from the engine and then lower it and remove it from under the vehicle. With the transmission removed from under the vehicle, remove the fork and bearing assembly from the transmission. Remove the clip from the pivot ball and clean off any dirt or grease from the transmission bell housing, pivot ball, and input shaft. While not shown in the video, remove the old pilot bearing using a puller and replace it with a new pilot bearing. Lightly coat the guide tube and input shaft splines with the purple Ceram lube included with your ACT clutch kit. Slide the disc onto the input shaft to work the Ceram lube into the splines and then wipe off any excess lube. Place a small amount of Ceram lube on the fork pivot surfaces. Install the clip onto the pivot ball, install the fork into place, and then install the release bearing into the fork, making sure that the lowest tabs on the release bearing will make contact with the fork. Unbolt and remove the old pressure plate and disc. Unbolt and remove the old flywheel. For this customer, we are installing an extreme pressure plate along with a 6-pad spring-centered race disc and a Streetlite flywheel. Our spring-centered discs, both street and race, are designed to work with the ACT flywheel only. They are not compatible with the OE dual mass flywheel. Only our kits using solid center discs are compatible with the OE dual mass flywheel. The ACT clutch kits for this particular vehicle do not include the ACT Streetlite flywheel. Our solid center disc kits are designed for use with the OE dual mass flywheel, and our spring center disc kits are designed for use with the ACT flywheel, which is sold separately from the clutch kits. If you are installing a new OE dual mass flywheel, install the flywheel using new factory flywheel attachment bolts. Tighten all the bolts gradually at first until snug, and then torque the bolts to 88 foot-pounds in a crisscross pattern. If you are installing the ACT flywheel, install the ACT flywheel using the new flywheel attachment bolts included in the kit. Tighten all the bolts gradually at first until snug, and then torque the bolts to 88 foot-pounds in a crisscross pattern. Before setting the disc in place, make sure to clean the flywheel friction surface with some sort of non-petroleum based cleaner. Install the ACT disc, making sure the transmission side marking is facing away from the engine. Use the supplied alignment tool to hold the disc in place. Before setting the pressure plate in place, make sure to clean the friction surface with some sort of non-petroleum based cleaner. Install the ACT pressure plate using new OE pressure plate bolts. Gradually tighten all the bolts while making sure the disc is centered, and once all the bolts are snug, torque the bolts to 25 foot-pounds in a crisscross pattern. After the proper torque has been applied to the bolts, remove the alignment tool. Lift the transmission back into place. Install the bell housing bolts. Leave the bottom 2 bolts out to allow for installation of a bracket. On the right side, be sure to reinstall the bracket along with the bolts. Torque all the bolts to the specifications shown in the diagram. Reinstall and lock the electrical connector located at the right rear of the transmission. Install the bracket located at the bottom of the transmission. Reconnect the electrical connector at the bottom of the oil pan. Reinstall the bracket located on the right side of the transmission, which is also affixed to the oxygen sensor wiring. Reconnect the electrical connectors located at the bottom of the transmission and reinstall them into the bracket. Reinstall the slave cylinder. Because we removed the shifter completely for demonstrational purposes, and if you removed it as well, at this time reinstall the shifter, making sure the arrow on the shifter boot is facing toward the front of the vehicle. Reinstall the shifter bracket assembly onto the shifter and make sure to lock the shifter bushing back into place by rotating the tangs on the shifter bushing. Apply a small amount of lube to the two bearing pins and install the two pins to fasten the shifter assembly bracket to the top rear of the transmission. Lift the transmission completely in place and secure the cross member to the vehicle's body. Torque the bolts to 54 foot-pounds. Reinstall the shifter rod into the shifter and place the retaining clip back into position. Install the hardware at the rear of the shifter bracket assembly, attaching it to the vehicle. Reinstall the splash guard brackets located to the right of the transmission. Install the drive shaft back into place and install the hardware at the center bearing. Torque the hardware to 15 foot-pounds. Install the hardware at the front of the drive shaft and torque them to 44 foot-pounds. Reinstall the heat shields located at the center of the vehicle. Reinstall the rear section of the exhaust, placing the two rubber isolators located just below the differential and the two rubber isolators located just above the exhaust tips back into the hangers. Reinstall the exhaust bracket hanger assemblies located just behind the rear suspension on each side of the vehicle. Reinstall the two front pipes, making sure to install the gaskets for the 2-bolt flanges. Tighten the flange nuts at the front and then tighten the clamps located at the rear. Reinstall the splash guards in the opposite order of removal. Reconnect the battery and reinstall the battery cover. You have now completed the installation of your new ACT clutch and flywheel. For more information on ACT's products or the products featured in this video, please visit our website in the description below. If you have found this video helpful, please support us by liking this video, and for more content, check out our channel. Thank you for watching.